Good morning. We'll call to order the Tuesday, August 20th meeting of the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee. And we've got a full house committee-wise today here. Just going to hit a couple things. Roxanne is got other commitments, so I'm going to move the airport up on the agenda ahead of the others, if that's all right with everybody.
Absolutely.
Are there changes to the agenda? No changes? Any public comment this morning? Unregistered? Okay. Chair's report. Don't have anything formal. Just thank Susan for covering for me last month.
It's a pleasure. Everybody was wonderful. And we missed you.
I missed you too. Thanks.
We need a title for this committee, like the Government Operations is the best committee. We should call this the Extraordinary Committee.
I wouldn't object to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with that.
Let me defer the county administrator's report and go right to the airport. Roxanne, are you with us?
I am here. Thank you for letting me jump ahead this morning. I appreciate it. For the department report, I've added a few other things that I wanted to let everybody know about. On Saturday, September 14th, is the Airport Day and Emergency Preparedness Expo Day. There'll be the Runway 5K. East Hill will be providing their breakfast. There'll be scenic flights. There'll be a blood drive at the whole health department. Other county departments, emergency response has been, a great asset in this. So they're participating. So I just wanted to get that information out there. We just finally got approved for the 5K race. So we're going to really be pushing that in our advertising. But please, come out, or if you have any questions, reach out to myself or Chris Stephanie, our marketing person. Next, we have a gentleman retiring, Tom Warner. He's a Dryden resident. He began working for the airport in 2002. So he has just over 22 years with Tompkins County. He's also an Army veteran. We will miss him greatly. His wife is also, she works at emergency response, but they have bought a home down south, so they'll be moving there this month. But tomorrow is his last day at the airport, so we're going to miss Tom. The airport had their Part 139 inspection in July. Once again, the airport team did an amazing job. There was one minor discrepancy that was actually taken care of before the inspector left. Teganic Aviation, they had a discrepancy as well, but that was corrected. And I also want to say it's not that I'm extremely pleased, which I am, with the outcome of the inspection, but what the inspector reports back to me on the staff. She said airport has an amazing team. They really take pride in their work and work hard to make sure the airport is operating safely. And it's well noted, and she reports that many other inspectors have reported that to her that have been here in the past. So I have to say kudos to the airport team for the great job that they do on a daily basis. Next, I'm going to jump to the end here, the demographics. I think Mike Lane was asking for a one-page document, kind of what's happening at the airport, and we will be getting that put together. It's in the finalized process with our consultant and with Chris on kind of what's happening at the airport and who uses the airport. In 2023, there were over 118,000 travelers. I did have those numbers switched, so it's 60% of the users were residents of Tompkins County and 40% were visitors. And it's about an equal amount for business and vacation, about 22%. And then 56% were going to visit family, friends. And this was information from the last couple of surveys we're done and that we have done. So we're constantly looking into that. The economic impact is actually about a $32 million economic impact that the airport brings to the community. And there's well over 100 jobs just locally right at the airport, which includes the rental cars, the airlines, TSA, and others on the list. And then there's jobs farther out too that, because Ithaca's here, there's other jobs that are impacted as well. So I wanted to share that, but I'll be having a nice one-page document coming along shortly that people can use to share at community meetings or functions that I think would be really helpful.
Thank you for that, Roxanne.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Next, the strategic business plan. Thanks to the county legislature back in 2023, put into our budget to do a strategic business plan, and that's been moving along, and we're getting a draft report that'll actually be going to the steering committee for the strategic plan next week. After that review, the Air Service Board will look at it for comments, any additional input, and the report will be coming to this committee shortly thereafter. Some of the they're still really working on the air service portion of that. That's another portion of the strategic business plan, so that's really ramped up over the summer months. They're looking at opportunities to increase non-airline revenue, additional air service. There was a market analysis done, what would be beneficial and feasible to work, that would work at Ithaca. They're also, so in addition on this information I sent out, I have some information on customs facility. So as you know, in 2019, the airport initiative grant included construction.
I think you're freezing on us, Rocky.
The cost of the facility, right, am I better now?
Yeah,
Is that better now? Can you see me?
we can hear you.
Okay. Internet and, okay. As long as internet in Brooktondale, sorry.
Roxanne, do you want to try to turn your camera off? Sometimes if you turn your camera off while you speak, it helps.
Okay. Can you hear me okay now?
We hear you good now, yeah.
Okay, great. So in 2023, that funding was put forth. So in 2019 was the airport initiative grant. So part of the, in 2023 budget and 2024 for customs, it was determined that really the customs facility is not generating the revenue needed to cover that facility. So we were tasked, at airport administration and county administration to look at, opportunities and, what's involved with the customs facility. That was during last year's budget process in 2023 through the beginning of 2024, in the financial situation related to customs. So we've looked at, what the repercussions could be of, closing the customs facility. We did our due diligence, reached out to Custom and Border Protection, reached out to New York State DOT as far as it relates to the grant. Along with Customs, they reported back that yes, their contract can be, canceled with a 120-day notice. With the Upstate Airport Initiative Grant, the DOT, they will work with us, as far as repurposing the facility. They understand, the issues that, the airport has experienced financially with Customs. For instance, there was in 2023, the total operations at the facility cost just over $270,000. And, we took in $15,000 in revenue. That's a big hit, on our budget already. So, we looked at, opportunities, and that's also part of the strategic and business plan. They're looking at opportunities of, could the building be repurposed? They're coming up with some ideas that will be, noted in the draft of the plan. It's unfortunate. A lot of money was spent, a lot of time and effort into this facility, but this is really, something that the county legislature, would make the determination, as far as Customs moving forward. I spoke with Lisa, we'll be putting together a resolution for the legislature to make that determination on what they want to do moving forward. But I just wanted to make sure that, everybody had all the information. We've done a lot of digging, we've done a lot of looking at what we can do. But again, I just wanted to be transparent and share all of this with everybody, and so that you could make the best and the most informed decision moving forward with customs. And I don't know if Lisa has anything to add to that.
Thanks, Roxanne. I did want to mention, you mentioned the 2023 data, year-to-date 2024. I believe it's true that there have been 6 flights that have cleared customs to date in 2024. So it's
Through May, there were
through May.
Yep. But not many more than that.
So it's not a sustainable business model for the airport, and if the county wants to get out of the position of an ongoing financial support to the airport, I think this needs to be looked at seriously.
Thanks for that update. Randy?
Thanks, Roxanne. Maybe I'll get a hold of you. I'd like to just come up and, can I look at the building and what it is? I'm just curious to see it. I don't think I've seen that, the customs facility.
Beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me know what works.
Great.
I'd be
Thank you.
interested too. I haven't seen it yet.
Sure. I can, I'm not sure if Josh is on the call, but if not, one of us can get you to the customs facility, and not a problem with a tour of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mike, did you have a question?
Yeah, and I understand the pressure that's on the customs facility. It's been there for 2 years. There are some members of the legislature who are not real fans of the airport, so that we have to keep that in mind. But I'm really glad for the in-depth look at this you're taking, Roxanne. We did have the fixed-base operator come in and talk to us, what, 6 months ago or so, and clean with us to keep this open. Will that be part of your report?
Yeah, I've gotten additional information from them, on what they generate as well. And I believe in 2023, the revenue that they generated from customs was right around $80,000 that they get from fueling and, servicing the flights at the customs.
The other question on a different topic, I just wondered, maybe what you and Josh are hearing nationwide. We're hearing about the airlines are getting more and more people, like more than pre-pandemic even, and they have a lot of flights. On the other hand, we heard that Southwest just pulled out of Syracuse. And are we seeing any resurgence of the local flights? I know they had trouble with the pilots because they retired so many out, but it's been 2 or 3 years now. Is that rebounding at all? Are we going to be able to? Do you think we're going to be able to see more flights with the contract carriers?
Good question, Mike. I'm not sure if Josh is on. I can, begin to answer this. So we are, seeing an increase in passengers. Obviously, we're not back to pre-pandemic level. We have, the addition of Delta, with the 2 flights on 76-seat aircraft has given us additional seats that helped, when we lost American Airlines back in 2022. So that's a positive. We have good load factors on Delta and United. We have been in communications with both of them. We're working hard with the Small Community Air Service Development Grant to get service back to Washington, which is something that the community really benefited from. So that's stuff that's in the works. I can reach out to Josh and have him put additional, he's been really dealing a lot with the air service. So I'll have him try to put more information for the next F&I meeting to give a report on that if you would like.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything further, Roxanne, you want to bring to us before we go to the resolutions?
I think that's it. And again, as always, reach out with any questions anytime, anybody has anything, or if they want to come up to the airport, let us know.
Well, I know you've got a lot of challenges there, and I appreciate you keeping us up to date.
Thanks.
So you've got some awards of contract and authorizations. We got Resolution B authorizing award of bid and anticipated receipt and acceptance of Federal Aviation Administration and New York State DOT grant for the purchase of airport rescue and firefighting structural vehicle and auxiliary equipment, ID 12664. Do we have a motion, Susan, and second, Randy? Want to tell us a little about this, Roxanne?
Absolutely. So the four resolutions that are on the agenda today, so they're all related to grants from the FAA, and a couple of them have come in to Lisa, and a couple are anticipated to be coming. That's how the wording is, anticipated receipt. Just trying to get these, they have to be signed and back to the FAA by September 2nd. So this one is, something that's been on our airport capital improvement plan. It's a structural vehicle. We had talked about it at the last F&I believe. It's replacing a 1988 vehicle. This will help with the buildings that we currently have, all the structures on the airport. And this is just part of the replacement plan.
Okay, moved and seconded. Further discussion or questions? Randy?
Yes, Roxanne. Does that pumper really cost over $2 million?
Unfortunately, yes, it does.
Okay, all right, well, I just had to ask that question. And the other, I have another question.
Absolutely.
What happens to the old one? Do you just trade it in, or do you auction it off, or what happens to the old one?
I believe that was one that I think we bought from Lansing. And again, I don't know, Josh, are you on this morning? I don't see him.
Josh is not on.
I'm not sure if that one, is he on?
Well, you can get back to me on that. It's not important. Just
I
curious.
can I'll get back to you on that, yep.
Okay, and the last question is maybe more for Lisa. How does the money flow? So do we buy the vehicle, do we pay for it and then reimbursed, or do we get the money up front and then we buy it? How does that work?
I believe that's a question for Roxanne, because each grant is a little different, but typically, I think we purchase and then are reimbursed. Roxanne, is that the case with these funds?
Actually, with the FAA, is really quick at reimbursing us. So usually they reimburse us before we even pay an invoice on that, because the drawdown happens so quick with the electronic drawdowns from the FAA. The DOT is a little bit more delayed, but not much. They've been getting a quick turnaround. But yeah, as soon as invoices come in, the paperwork from CNS is already doing the drawdown with the FAA, and the money comes in to finance almost, if not before, simultaneously.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? If not, I guess we're all here. We can vote by hand. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Next resolution is for an award of contract and anticipated receipt and acceptance of FAA and New York State DOT grant update to the airport sustainable master plan and airfield pavement management plan, and ID 12663. Anything on that you want to add, Roxanne?
So for that, this also is kind of coinciding with the current strategic and business plan. The airport did the last master plan in 2012. It was the first sustainable master plan for airports ever completed. So this is just something that, you know, we look at projects moving forward, we look at the pavement, we make sure it's structurally, you know, sound, safe. So there's a lot that goes into the master plan. And then next year, part of the overall plan will be an electronic. They'll look at the electric facilities at the airport and opportunities there. So, but this is just something that looks at all things happening on the airport.
Okay. Project cost is a little over $992,000. The grant is for $893,385, and local shares being covered by state grant and PFCs. Any further questions?
PFC is in airport.
PFCs from the airport, correct?
Yep, correct.
We have a motion. Yeah. Randy moves, Susan seconds. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Yep.
Move on to item D, resolution award of contract and anticipated receipt and acceptance of FAA and state DOT grants, reconfigure taxiway D, E, and F in new taxiways J and K, and the general aviation apron design. And it's ID 12662. Randy moves, Susan seconds. I'll have Greg do the next one. Anything you want to brief us on this one, Roxanne?
So these are design grants. Again, these are, you know, mandates. FAA, you know, makes an overall change to, you know, how things have to operate on the airfield. So it comes out in an advisory circular. So these are things that we have to do operationally.
And this is funded similar to the last resolution, correct?
Correct.
Randy?
Yes, Roxanne, I just want to say that I appreciate the memorandums. They're clear, and it helps me understand what's going on, so thank you.
You're welcome.
That does help.
Yeah.
Any questions, further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item E, we also have resolution award of contract and anticipated receipt and acceptance of FAA and state DOT grant for rehabilitating runway 14/32 lighting LED and reconstruction of airfield guidance signs, as well as design, it appears. Motion, Greg, second, Mike. Anything you want to tell us about this, Roxanne?
So again, another design grant, same thing, you know, just looking at the lights currently. If you have any additional questions, I'm happy to answer, but replacing those and signage. And again, there was a change in how the FAA mandates the signage on airports. So that'll be factored into the design of this and then the replacement of the signs.
Very good. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Would you like to give us anything more this morning, or have we covered it all, Rocky?
I think we're good for today.
Any questions for Roxanne while we have her here? Well, thank you. We'll move back to the...
Great, thank you again for letting me jump ahead.
You're welcome. Let's go back, County Administrator's report.
Thanks, Lee. I don't have anything very formal or in-depth, but I just wanted to say that as we get into the review of the 2025 budget, that the capital projects that are new to the program or that haven't been put in the program before are going to be expressed as separate projects to be considered and voted on, so it's clear to the legislature that what everyone is approving and putting into the capital plan. So just an additional step, but I think something that will be helpful for transparency and so that everyone is aware of what they're approving and voting on.
That contrasts with, how did we do it before?
Before,
One package.
one packet of all of the PAR forms that are considered the capital plan, the 5-year capital plan, but what is being approved for 2025 were just, and I don't believe that there was a formal vote on them. It was just put in as part and adopted as part of the overall annual budget.
I think you're right. I don't remember any extra resolution on that. Budget Committee did review all of them.
Yes.
By design, it is the amount allocated for the capital program is in the county fiscal policy, right? We are adding a certain amount every year. 0.5%, I guess, I believe is where the
right.
goal was. So you've got a total amount you're working with when you bring that package to us. Is that?
That's right. And we're, there's an assumption of some debt service that will, yes, future, that will be taken on in the future with the capital plan.
Mike?
Glad you mentioned that, Lee. That decision by this legislature a number of years ago to add that 0.5% each as part of our annual budget process has certainly given us a lot more flexibility and taken a lot of the pain out of our capital projects.
Yeah, I'm glad you're talking about the capital budget. Is that going to be one of the early discussions that we have in the special budget committee?
I would have to look at the schedule and see where we're slotted in to discuss that. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Sure.
Anything further, or that'll work for today? We'll be seeing a lot of you over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think so. I think that'll work for today. Thanks.
Okay.
Take your vitamins and stay well.
We'll move on to the Highway Department. I see Nick is online with us. I don't know about Jeff.
No, Jeff is actually off today.
Well, welcome, Nick.
Thank you. You as well.
You have anything you want to report, or go straight to the items?
Straight to the items are fine. We're, right in the middle of our construction season and moving forward and looking at budgets and seeing how much more we could do and picking up the pieces from all the storms that seem to still be happening, but we're looking pretty good.
Okay, thanks, Nick. For information purposes, we have a capital payment summary report, ID 12668. Were there any questions on that? Fairly standard. Resolution for a budget adjustment, Highway Department appropriating American Rescue Plan Act funds for the purchase of highway equipment. And it's ID 12643. We have a motion. Moved by Mike. By Susan. Anything you want us to know on this adjustment, Nick?
Those are for a couple of our older pieces that have kind of been pushed in the last couple years from our 5-year plan, and it was a chance to gain a couple back with some extra funding.
Okay. Questions? Lisa?
I'll also state that, just for the committee's understanding, that these are ARPA funds that are outside of the recovery fund process, that these were allocated during the budget process, otherwise, like one-time over-target requests where they weren't fully utilized. And so and they need to be obligated in due time before we lose them. So that's why we're bringing it at this juncture rather than through the budget process, because there wouldn't be time to obligate them, and we don't want to lose them.
You must be getting close to the end then.
Yes.
On those ARPA funds.
We are, and we've done a great job of obligating them so that we can fully utilize.
Okay, any further questions? Greg?
So these will reduce our capital plan by this amount?
That's correct.
So therefore, it should free up other money in the capital plan, the cash for capital kind of swap?
I wouldn't say free up other money. It will reduce the number of hard decisions before us. But yeah, conceptually,
Were
yes.
these scheduled in the capital plan?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And what other types of funds can ARPA money be, or what other types of things could we obligate the ARPA money for?
We need to obligate them for one-time expenditures where we can contract for them in a fast period of time, which is why this was chosen. It's a need. It's something that was deferred previously, already in the plan, and we know that we can secure the equipment in a timely fashion.
Got it.
So it checked all of those boxes.
So the equipment has to be here, or we just have to have it contracted for by?
We have to have it contracted for by, and there are certain requirements in that contracting process.
Okay. And this has already gone through BCP? Or not yet? This comes here first and then to BCP?
No, I think we saw that last week, didn't we, Mike?
I don't think we've had it at BCP yet.
I can't remember.
Sorry, I'm asking the tough questions this morning.
No, I remember the talk about the bulldozer.
We may have, just in an attempt to put it through, and it may have
It looks
hit
like it
BC.
did go to BCP on the 8th,
We did that one?
Yeah.
All
according
right,
to our system.
thank you. I do remember the discussion.
Jordan?
And don't we have to actually spend all this ARPA money by the end of '25? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And this is,
Yes, end of
this is the
25.
highest, best, and greatest need? Or the most expedient way to spend the money?
Both of those, I mean, it is among the needs in our capital plan, and it's a one-time use. It checked the boxes to, and we had been holding off in seeing if there were other needs that were coming our way that we could use this funding for, but this was, in our estimation, the best choice.
All right, so if, in my understanding, the useful life of this type of equipment is usually pretty long, so we can typically bond these items for longer, right, than some other items. Do we know how much doing this will save the capital program?
We could calculate that.
All right, I would be curious. I'd be happy to vote for this, but I would like this to not be on the consent agenda if possible when it comes to the legislature, because I do think that this is something that needs to have full legislative discussion.
So noted. And Mike?
I just wanted to underscore something that Nick said to us, is that this helps us get back on our schedule to purchase equipment where we've had to defer when it had actually come up for purchase. We've had to defer something, and this, I think, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you told us was this helps us get back on schedule.
Yeah, it does. Both of these pieces have been deferred throughout the last couple years. and the jet rod is a 1995. And with all the storms we have, and we like to, not even counting the storms, when we go out and prep a road, we use this to clear everybody's culvert pipes, storm sewers, get everything clean, flowing, and inspect. And this one has kind of been a hinder to us the last couple years for maintenance issues. And then it's actually a 1995, and the bulldozer is a 1998. So definitely we've got our useful life out of these, and they were, like they've been deferred, and we just saw it as an opportunity to update them and get closer to our 5-year plan.
Thanks. Any further questions? Lisa?
I have a breaking calculation from Norma, who's also watching the meeting. It's roughly $30,000 per year for these two items if they were to be bonded. And we may have to bond several other items on the capital plan that would cost nearly $100,000, but those are all estimates at this point.
Thank you. No, that's super helpful.
Katrina?
This is not on the consent agenda, but is pending committee action on Tuesday night's agenda, so.
Thank you.
Boy, it's just great to see staff, suddenly appear and fill us in here.
There's a camera up there, too.
Takes a village.
Thanks. Any further questions? And thanks for the clarifications. Randy?
Not on this, I don't.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion moves forward, but not on the consent agenda. I think that covers the highway department at this point. Did you have a question while we had Nick here? Yeah.
Yes, Nick. There are a couple of areas around my district. One of them is on Millard Hill Road in the intersection of Horton Road and Fishkill Road, where the visibility is really bad, and there's trees blocking your visibility. So when I go that way, because I do go that way often, I kind of look both ways, slam on my gas and hope for the best, because you just can't see because people go 55 miles an hour. And then there's another one on Sheffield Road, at the intersection of 79. It's you can't see, but the trees blocking the crossroads there are actually on the state highway there. But does somebody go around or is there a way to give feedback to you folks of issues like that?
Yes, we do get a lot of feedback from our website. Daily, we're getting anywhere from 5 to 25 concerns from, dead deer, a pothole, mailbox got hit, visibility. This time of year, visibility is big. Currently, we have our arm tractor, brush mowing tractor, is in Brooktondale, town of Caroline. And right now, that tractor is doing sight distance at intersections, sight distance on signs. This time of year, everything being leaved out, and with the storms and things breaking and everything growing so well, we're mowing back for sight distance on signs as well. The Millard and Horton, that's something I could take a peek at. The actual tree trimming, because that's kind of all our jurisdiction there. We can take a peek. We have our bucket truck that we actually received last year. That was ARPA funding for that. We've done a lot of tree trimming with that. We do have, there's the supervisors. We're out daily, and we have multiple spots that we do identify. Some are trimmed by hand because they're very sensitive. People get really concerned when there's shrubs and trees in their front yard. And, those ones we'll do by hand are a lot neater. The ones that are, out in the country, the arm tractor works very well. We actually just purchased another head for that seems to be working well. It's more of a brush kind of a brush hog rotary head compared to a flail. Really good success with that so far. The Sheffield in 79, we've been in contact with the state DOT numerous times about that, and I believe they actually just cut. There was one tree that they just cut here a little bit ago that was in somebody's lawn, and I can check that out again and reach out as well. Sometimes, a lot of times we do go around the corners with our mowers to mow the grass and shoulders because the state seems to be very behind, I guess is a nice way to put it, for their mowing this year. But when it comes to actually getting the arm tractors out there to mow, that's definitely their jurisdiction. But we have some good contacts and we can push a little harder.
Great, Nick, thanks very much.
No problem.
It's good to be aware that the website is monitored and has that kind of numbers of communications going across it. So good to know. Okay, thanks, Nick. We'll move on. We put an item on here just to see, Randy, if you had any update for us on downtown facilities.
The big issue for us now is evaluating the request for qualifications. The review committee went and narrowed it down to 4, and we're going to do those interviews on the 28th. And it'll be a long day because we're going to do them right after. Each one's at least an hour, and we'll do all those in one day.
When do you hope to have a firm on board?
The goal is to get down to 1. It may be narrowed down to 2. We don't know that yet. And then bring it to the full legislature in September. And Lisa, were we planning on having a presentation from the selected entity?
Yes. And since it's going to ultimately involve a price negotiation, the plan right now is to perhaps consider a special earlier session of the legislature and go into executive session for the presentation, and then go from there to proceed with, if authorized, to proceed with negotiation.
All right.
I think it's important, part of the discussion that we had earlier this week about this topic was that all the work we're having to do with SHPOs is going to cost money, and we're going to be asking the consultant to do a lot of that work on the historic preservation and dealing with SHPOs. If we had taken down the buildings, we wouldn't have to spend that money.
So noted. Thanks. Any other questions on facilities, downtown facilities? Lisa, I see you.
I'll just state too that I think our concern for proceeding with the taking down of the buildings without the partnership or consent of SHPO is that our further eligibility for state and federal funding, which they need to go through and sign off on. So that is the rationale for wanting to comply and partner with SHPO in this process.
Do you see any outstanding issues from the city aspect with the landmarks, or is it strictly SHPO?
It's strictly SHPO. The city was as surprised as we were to understand that SHPO considers these to be contributing structures. And given that, there's a process that we now need to work through.
Okay. Anything else on that topic? If not, Terry, welcome.
Hello. So it's been a little bit since I came to the committee, so we thought we'd give an update on some of the stuff that's going on the sustainability side. So I'll give some updates on the fleet and facilities piece, and then we can jump over to the resolution that's somewhat tied into this. So starting on the fleet side, We are continuing to purchase and lease vehicles. We've gotten most of the vehicles that we want for the year, but we're still trying to fill in a couple of holes here and there. So hopefully we'll have that wrapped up in the next couple of months. We have recently, and by recently I mean in May, we applied to something called the Zero Emissions Vehicle Rebate Program through the DEC. That is a rebate for electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid vehicles, and so we've applied to the tune of $72,500. It was supposed to be accepted on a rolling basis. The state has told me that the new software that they're using doesn't allow them to look at applications on the rolling basis. So we're having to wait until that closes at the end of September to find out. But the nice side is that we're able to apply for a couple more vehicles that we've purchased in the meantime. So we're hoping that that 72.5 will turn into maybe 85 or some odd amount like that. We recently, and I think I talked to the committee, or maybe I talked to Peak about this, we recently bought several EV ARCs. It's the all-in-one solar electric vehicle charging stations. We've purchased 3 of them. They are now in use. They are all installed and deployed, one at the Public Works facility, one at the airport, and one at the Sheriff's Department. And so they're already getting a lot of use. They're fascinating to see. Everyone that sees them has a lot of questions about them. We've had other municipalities ask us about them. We've had contractors ask us for information. So we're testing those out and seeing how they're working, and so far we've gotten pretty good reviews, but we have had, I wouldn't say an issue, but we've come to the realization that for sedans, SUVs, they might work out, but for the fully electric trucks, the batteries might be just a little bit too big, so we're looking at other potential options on that side. Switching over to the green facilities piece, we're still looking at getting the Inflation Reduction Act funding from phase 1 of the green facilities project. That process starts with applying for a registration number from the IRS. We've gotten 75% of the registration numbers that we need to fully submit what we need. We're hoping to get the rest hopefully by the end of this month or mid-September, and at that point we'll be able to start putting together the forms that we need to submit to the IRS. And we're hoping for, I believe around $1 million plus in funding from that program that would go back to the respective capital funds, one for the Green Facilities Fund, the other into the Green Fleet Fund, depending on which source of funding they're coming from. So we're also getting support from the Lighthouse cohort. This was done through the World Resources Institute. The county was invited to participate in a cohort consisting of municipalities across the United States. We're among the first to be applying for this funding, and so they're trying to learn lessons from how we're getting through it, and we already have a couple to share with them, so we'll see. Hopefully we get that funding soon and it can go straight back into the capital projects. On the green facility side, I also did want to note we are looking at phase 2. We had a meeting with Johnson Controls earlier this week to talk about next stage. They're in the final elements of putting together the detailed design for phase 2, and then we'll be awaiting the decision of the legislature and the budgeting process to see which projects will move forward. On that end, we've also applied for funding. So at the end of July, the consolidated funding application was due to the state for several different programs. We applied for one called the Building Cleaner Communities Challenge Program. And so we're seeking $2 million for the geothermal system at the Department of Emergency Response. In total, that's about a $4 million project. We've applied for the earmark as well, and we got word maybe a month and a half ago that we had made it through the first round of earmark cuts, so we're still waiting to see what the federal government does on that side, but we're hoping to get at least some funding to help push that project through. I'll talk about the CEC, the Clean Energy Communities grant, when we get to that resolution, but the last 2 things that I wanted to mention on this side was the Build Ready project that we had going at Caswell is no longer going to happen. I gave that announcement to Peak on Monday. Unfortunately, the state has deemed the project just infeasible due to the finances that are tied to the project. So we're looking at doing something slightly smaller, a different form of solar or business model for solar. So we're going to have to engage with NYSEG to see if that actually is able to go through, but for right now, that project is defunct. But we are still continuing forward with the Build Ready project.
Excuse me, Terry.
Yeah.
Could Could you go over that one more time? I think the folks in Dryden are going to be very interested to understand why it went defunct.
Yeah, so unfortunately, with these projects, you know, you're kind of beholden to what the interconnection costs to tie into the grid and what they're going to be.
Okay.
And for a project of this size and where it was going to interconnect, it was actually going to interconnect at a substation in Groton on Peruville Road. And it was going to require roughly $9 million to create the interconnection at that point, is my understanding from the state. And they've decided that that's just too high of a cost for the size of the system and the return that they're going to be able to, or that a developer was going to be able to get. And so, unfortunately, it means that the project isn't going to move forward, barring some program from the state or federal government that helps defray the cost for interconnection.
Isn't that what came up when we looked at that originally? That it was going to be, it wasn't close to a substation or something that they could connect to, and that's why we kind of passed over it?
So you're correct that it was looked over because of the presumed interconnection costs at that time. Why it was reopened was the state had created a program called Build Ready at NYSERDA, which was supposed to help develop hard-to-develop projects, and that the state would put in more money into the interconnection costs that a developer never would, and in that way defray the cost. I think the state is now realizing that that's maybe a little too rich for their blood.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
That helps a lot. Thank you for that clarification.
So the Caswell project right now is on hiatus. We are still looking at a project at the airport. This would be a much smaller project, around 5 megawatts. We're exploring whether it would be with battery storage or not. We've worked with the airport, CNS, their consultant that's working on the master plan. I think the siting is kind of set. We're working on what that interconnection could look like. It's a very different type of interconnection just because it's such a smaller project. We're hoping to just tie into existing power lines that go close to CFR and Dewar. So we'll hopefully be bringing more information on that in the upcoming months to the committee. And then the final piece that I wanted to just make the committee aware of is just that we've been dealing with ongoing billing issues with NYSEG, most recent of which was a 140 kilowatt hour discrepancy, 140,000 kilowatt hour discrepancy that they found in our hydro, essentially. So we were notified by Gravity that our NYSEG bills weren't showing 140,000 kilowatt hours worth of production, which is roughly $15,000 to $17,000 to the county's favor. So we've been going back and forth with NYSEG for over a month to try and rectify this. And it's still not clear where we are with a resolution on this. It's been very challenging working with them on this, and so we're continuing to plug away with it. It's a lot of money, $15,000 isn't nothing. So we're going to try and capitalize on that. But if we continue to run into roadblocks, we might have to look at other alternatives.
Is this a production from the dam?
Yeah, so the hydro facility that we have in Waterloo has its own production meter, and it can list, we have an Excel spreadsheet that shows and I think it's 15, maybe 20-minute intervals, how much power is being produced. And then NYSEG just has a very simple meter there. And so their meter read 140,000 less kilowatt hours than what our production meter ran. And so we're trying to rectify that.
Flow charts.
Yeah.
No pun intended on that before.
Yeah, exactly. So we can prove definitively what it produced. And so it's just trying to, we've continuously asked them what they need for proof, and it's been challenging. So.
Comment on that.
Yeah.
So NYSEG, nobody likes them, right? It's just, so there's another entity in Tompkins County that has 15 buildings. And they got bills that were in error very recently. Some that they just shut the power off to these buildings, even though the bills were paid based on the numbers they provided, but the bills were incorrect, or at least they claimed that. And NYSEG's got a real problem here, because they're really messing up big time on billings and things like that. I think that's not an isolated instance. I don't know how we attack NYSEG, but we need to hold them accountable. I don't know how that is. And maybe it's the point where, and I told this other entity, is tell them that we're going to put all the payments in escrow until you clean this mess up. And then they were threatened with, we're going to turn all your power off. And these are public buildings, so it's a mess. They really are not a good company.
At some point, I think we could go to the Public Service Commission, have them investigate this.
Yeah, there's a complaint mechanism that we've used with the Public Service Commission in the past. The way it works is you submit a complaint and they tell NYSEG to respond to you within 24 hours. And then if they don't, you complain again. They say they'll try and get in touch with NYSEG again. And if that doesn't work, then they say they'll investigate it, and it takes 2 months to get any resolution on the investigation. That's been our experience several times with the Public Service Commission. So if we're going to go that route, I think it has to be at a higher level than just the general complaint mechanism, and maybe reaching out directly to the Public Service Commissioners themselves rather than trying to go through DPS staff.
Greg?
Yeah, would it be worthwhile at some point to have Gavin Mosley, who I think he's the NYSEG government community relations person locally, maybe come to the committee and give an update on what NYSEG's not doing or doing? Because I know every time they overbill, they're happy to keep your payment and then just let it be a credit towards your account. Trying to get a check out of them is like getting a dispensation from wherever you get those from these days. But it's just challenging, and I think we have an obligation as elected officials to bring voice, right, where you may run into the complaint line roadblock, or you may run into calling and not getting, or you may just not have the time, right, in your schedule if you've got a family or multiple jobs or whatever the case may be, to just, to go and fight the big corporation. So if you see it getting to a point where that may be helpful, I think we should absolutely in this committee be entertaining those types of conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Susan?
A few months ago, meetings ago, you gave a presentation of how you and others in the department went through that whole, the NYSEG rates. And there was a discussion at that time of, should the county be a participant in that, so that we could, because there wasn't a lot of information you could share because of the rules of the, so, I think that is something else that we really need to think about, how we participate in that to get more accountability, because it's in my district, I see a lot of activity around NYSEG rates and incorrect rates and how to navigate that. So I think and it's somewhat related, but that rate case, going through that, I think we should really seriously consider.
Yeah, and there's another rate case that's going to start next year, and so I think we'll be gearing up in the upcoming months to figure out a plan and how the county can participate in that. And I think it'll involve talking with the county attorney on kind of what the parameters that we can get the committee involved in. That's it for my update. We do have a resolution.
Okay. We're referring to resolution item 9B, approval of Clean Energy Communities Grant application and authorization of a letter of commitment from Chief Elected Official, ID number 12666. We'll get a motion on this by Susan, second by Randy. And do you want to tell us a little about this?
Yeah, so there's at the state level, there's a program called Clean Energy Communities that's run by NYSERDA. Essentially, there's a list of actions, and as you do actions in the program, you're ascribed points, and once you hit different points tiers, you're then given the opportunity to apply for a grant that has certain parameters around it, the biggest being around the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So the county has submitted enough actions to accrue enough points for, at this time, we have been awarded $475,000, or the ability to go after $475,000 in grant funding. We've recently been informed that some of our additional actions that we've submitted have been approved, and so believe in the next week or two, we should be getting another email granting us another $350,000 that we could use. And the way it works is if you apply for the $475,000, you would then have to have a separate project for the $350,000. So we've been waiting, knowing that we're likely to have it all together, and so be able to do one project, one contract, not have to manage multiple things at once. And so it would be a total of $825,000. For the grant, it's due on September 14th, and one of the requirements is to have a letter from an elected official. From the chief elected official to go with it that commits the county to actually doing what we said we were going to do in the grant. In the green facilities capital discussion and discussions with administration, we looked at what projects made the most sense. And because we were looking for a project that was distinct, that this funding could fully cover and wouldn't be reliant on other sources of funding from the county, where we settled was applying this funding to a solar canopy that would be at the health department. And that would satisfy the requirements of the grant, but would also alleviate the concern that we're basically assenting to a project without having fully gone through the budgetary process. So this would be money that would go to a project that would be fully funded by this project. We wouldn't be looking for any additional funding to support it.
Randy.
Yeah, Chair, thanks for working on all this and bringing money into the county. I think that's great to hear. And that you can do these projects. So this money is coming back is because of other projects you've done, right? And so now you can contribute this money to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Was the canopy somewhere in a master plan or a series of?
Yeah, it was part of our green facilities capital project. So it was part of that. It's one of the projects that we've pushed forward for phase 2. And when we've come to this committee and talked about phase 2 of the green facilities project, we've noted that this was the funding that we were assuming that we were going to get from this project would go towards that project, and that's why it was included.
Okay, any further questions? And will we see this on the agenda? I was looking at next week's, but I know you've got a time constraint here with the 14th.
Yes, I see Katrina nodding her head that we will see it at the next legislative meeting.
Okay. Further questions? All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jerry. Anything further for, before we let Terry go for planning and sustainability? Frank, you've got quite a few items here by the looks of things.
Yes, I apologize. It's grant season in FTA world, and I really appreciate all the help from Katrina and Jordan and everybody here. Brittany, they're the real MVPs for this. So if it's okay with you, we'll start with my presentation. I'll share my screen.
Pretty picture.
Let's get there. Okay. Oh, let's...
While Frank is bringing his presentation up, another topic that you had asked about earlier, I got some clarification on. The capital program will be early on in the budget process, September 5th. So it's the first night of EBC meetings, just an FYI.
Thank you.
Is that schedule about to come out? I haven't seen it.
It's out.
It's out.
All right.
And I believe Katrina just updated it with an additional date of EBC meetings that third week in September.
No, I don't mean the actual meeting dates. I mean what's going to be on the meetings.
Oh, okay. No, we're still finalizing those with departments. I think yesterday at the department head meeting, we got further confirmation of departments that could make the dates, so we're getting close.
Thanks.
trying to provide a little filler for you, Frank.
I appreciate that. I had it all set up and it disappeared, but we'll get through it. So we'll show this one here. Can everybody see it okay? So I was asked when I first started by some legislators for an assessment of our mobility management program and other programs in transportation modes. So over the next course of a year, I put together a plan. And what this plan is to assess all the transportation modes and mobility management programs and services that we offer here, see what the barriers are, and come up with some strategies to hopefully solve those barriers over the next 3 years. It's an ambitious project, but we feel pretty confident in getting this completely done. So what is mobility management? Mobility management, in its simplest form, is breaking down transportation barriers and getting a person from point A to point B with whatever mode of transportation is available. It solves those barriers that prevent people from getting access. It informs the community on what's available, how to sign up for it, how to use the system. And it also develops what's called travel training program. A lot of people are unfamiliar with how to ride a bus or how to use Ithaca bike share or Ithaca car share. So mobility management's role is to get out there and educate these people, inform these people on how to use these systems, physically take them on the bus, do a route with them, teach them about all the amenities, teach them how to read the schedule. That's what a true mobility management program is. And what we've found, and what seems to be the buzzword with a lot of the grants coming up, is social determinants of health. Now, what are social determinants of health? In the transportation world, it's access to employment, a food source, education, healthcare, and because of our beautiful surroundings, recreation. So in your packets was the complete draft report. I'm just going to highlight a few of the key ones here for you. As you are aware, because of COVID, a lot of the fixed route systems had to be reduced, and those impacts were tremendous in rural communities. And it's not just this rural community, it was all across the state. We found that we really need to start getting into the underserved, low-income areas of Tompkins County because they really need transportation, but they also need to be informed of how to use it, how to read schedules, where to access those points. And I'm going to talk about a little bit later in my presentation of a couple of pilot programs. They're going to break down those barriers and get those people, especially in underserved low-income areas, to social determinants of health. One of the other barriers we found, and I know none of these are surprises to you, is out-of-county travel to get people to medical specialists has been a tremendous barrier, not only here, but in several counties across New York State. I talked about the reduced service due to COVID. And then the other piece, and this is where the rural communities, and I don't want you to take it literal as first mile, 1 mile up, 1 mile back, but people have a hard time getting access to bus stops, especially in rural communities. And that's what the transportation term is called, first mile challenges. But I want you to look at the first mile as it could be 10 miles to the closest bus stop, it could be 15. It's not just a mile up, a mile back. So those are just some of the barriers. And I listed a bunch of strategies in the draft report, but I want to cover just a few here. And I'll talk about our timeline and what we're looking to do. There is a tremendous need to have one location, one app, one website, one phone number for people, not only residents of Tompkins County, but visitors of Tompkins County, to call, look on a website, use an app to find transportation and to get assistance with booking their transportation needs, paying for it, having it all lined up for them, explaining how to use each and every system. So we're looking at creating a one-call, one-click center. The second, which I talked about, is developing a robust mobility management program to do all the things that I talked about in my first slide. TCAT is the backbone of public transit in Tompkins County, and we want to assist with our programs to increase their ridership. So we have some ideas on that with our First Mile, Last Mile program that I'll talk about in a minute. The other thing we found, and I keep hating to use the word COVID, but a lot of transportation modes went out of business, and it's unfortunate. We have very limited taxi cabs, even more limited Uber and Lyft, and demand response entities that can provide transportation. So the goal, as I'll explain to you in a minute on my timeline, is start to get together various stakeholders and figure out how we can all work together with volunteer driver programs, with vehicles that agencies have, that they're only using them a certain period of time, that we can all coordinate transportation to get people access. And then the final piece that I'll highlight here today is some pilot programs that will not only assist with breaking down the transportation barriers and providing access for all, but it's also going to assist TCAT with increasing their ridership. These programs are First Mile, Last Mile. I don't want you to think of this as just a mile to a bus stop, because Tompkins County is very unique and progressive in some unique things that they're doing here with Ithaca Bike Share, with Ithaca Car Share. So what we want to do is we want to start this program to get people access to a bus stop, to a bike share location, to a car share location, so that will break down that First Mile, Last Mile barrier challenge. I can tell you that I've been successful in 2 upstate communities, one upstate community for First Mile, Last Mile in St. Lawrence County, where we implemented it using a volunteer driver program. And it was very successful. We were at the beginning, in the soft opening, we were doing 180 trips per month, and now it's like 12 to 1,500 per month. And it's been sustained because of funding by New York State DOT. And the reason why it's been sustained is because the #1 reason why people used First Mile, Last Mile was to get access to employment. When New York State DOT saw the data, they continued funding it, and just talked to the mobility manager last week, and they're continuing funding it to this date. The other program is near and dear to my heart. It was a passion project that I started many years ago. I think it was 2018. I was fortunate enough to be at a conference and got some seed money to bring in to try to develop this program. It's called Rides to Recovery. In a nutshell, and I use this term loosely when I say active recovery, it's for people that are in active recovery for substance use disorder and mental health to get transportation to social determinants of health. It's very important to me. We implemented it in St. Lawrence County. We were fortunate enough to get the Office of Mental Health and OASIS to give us some seed money along with the Community Service Board. We started the program, and it was up to 400 rides per month, and it has been sustained. Surprisingly, but I'm very happy to report this. The number one reason to get people that were in active recovery and have mental health issues was for employment, to seek out employment. And once they sought out employment, they now had reliable transportation to get them to and from their jobs. So I'm hoping to implement both of those programs here in Tompkins County. And let me tell you my ambitious timeline. Once the plan is hopefully accepted by this committee and the legislature, we will go out to RFP for mobility management and one-call, one-click center late summer. We're looking at September to get that RFP out, hopefully award it sometime in November, execute the contract, and be ready to launch January of 2025. During that time period, me and my staff will be getting various stakeholders across the county together to try to figure out how we can increase the number of transportation modes in Tompkins County. Once the infrastructure is put in place, we hope to put an RFP out for rides to recovery and first mile, last mile sometime around January. Have the contract awarded sometime in April of 2026 with a soft opening in June and then full implementation in October of 2026. So where did I get this message out and receive people's input and feedback? We did various public outreach sessions, various meetings that I've been on with stakeholders and nonprofits throughout Tompkins County. There was a video presentation, a survey, and the draft plan listed on the county's website for people to give input on. And the reason why I put these quotes, some of the quotes that were on the survey here, is because what I've heard in my year and a half being in Tompkins County is that people say they always give us their input, but they don't feel like they're being heard, and they don't feel like anything's ever being done. So this is my attempt to show everybody that we do hear them. We have it in our plan. I'm not promising it's going to be done in 3 years, but this is a working document, and this working document will continue to grow. One idea was, and Legislature Brown was part of this lively discussion at one of the public outreach session, is how can we use the school bus transportation system when they're not in service serving school buses to look at using it to transport youth and the public to extracurricular activities, to parent-teacher conferences, to other opportunities in the area that they might not get that chance. Very interesting idea and concept that I think we should consider looking at down the road. This other one isn't going to be a surprise to anybody, but somebody brought up congestion. And how can we alleviate congestion, especially on Route 13? So the more people we can get on public transit, the less number of vehicles we need on the road. It's not going to be the be-all, end-all, but it's what needs to be in the plan and what we need to consider. People like to get to their place quickly. They don't like to wait an hour and a half. They like that direct service. That's why people that have the ability to use cars use cars. We have to look at, in our public fixed route system, is there a way to create loops on the hour, on the half hour to get to destinations so people aren't waiting to get from point A to point B. So over the next several years, we'll be working with a great team at TCAT and trying to see if there's ways that we can provide more efficiencies in our system. The other piece that is the infrastructure, again, nothing you all haven't heard about, for bikes and scooters so that we can have a safe walking and riding community in our area. So how are we going to evaluate this plan? This is going to be a constant work in progress, a constant evaluation. Right now, we're in the process of, we've received RFPs for an app that's going to make sure that we get data that we need. It'll be data-driven. We'll have various meetings with stakeholders. The Planning and Sustainability Office will lead the collaboration and coordination efforts. We'll be using data to be making decisions. And once we get into the underserved low-income areas, we're going to develop a better understanding of what the true need is. Finally, it's still live, and I encourage everybody watching or anybody in the room to go to this link. The presentation is there. The survey link is there. The survey is still live. We would love more feedback and your opinion. And I also have my email address here. Feel free to email me directly with any concerns, complaints, or any comments and input that you'd like to have in this plan. Thank you for your time. Feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you, Frank. Susan?
I want to thank you for this. I would just, so I've had a question about the survey, but you already answered. It's still live, so I can send it out to members of my district. So a couple of comments is that when I was director of the library, we had a huge, the three most common discussions I had with community members was transportation, getting to and from recovery services, because there were very few buses that were, or ways to get from the outer parts of the county to get into town. And then the bus didn't come back until the evening. So where did they go during the day? So they came into the library, and we invited them in to use the services, but we also had a pretty significant number of young adults, and they would hang outside the library. And I went out to talk with them and invited them in for pizza to find out what's going on. And actually, I offered to go out and read to them, but that seemed to frighten them a little. Let me reading them stories. Sure. But it was a fascinating thing that we had this great need for transportation in the outer parts of the county for very significant services. So I really applaud this initiative. The other thing is that there are a significant number of employees who work in Ithaca, and this was true in the library, where they live on the outer parts of the county, and so they depend on transportation. So I wanted to provide that feedback. So, and I think it's great to work with the libraries because they hear all of the transportation questions, all of them, and we have fantastic rural libraries. So I encourage you to reach out to them for any educational sessions that you might have. And thank you for the work.
Thank you. Just a comment on the employment issue of people coming in and out of Ithaca. Jennifer Kuzner from Way to Go was instrumental in working with Cortland Transit and TCAT because there was a barrier with people coming from Cortland into Ithaca for employment and education and everything. There was a gap where the buses weren't connecting so people could transfer. Because of Jennifer's work right now, there's an MOU just waiting to be signed. They've worked out the seamless transfer now from Cortland Transit to TCAT at TC3. So now residents will have seamless transfers and won't have to worry about that barrier or gap.
Randy?
A lot of parking at TC3 too, so people can kind of park and ride or whatever. So the program for the One Call, One Click Center, is that all funded by the DOT?
So the way the funding stream works for mobility management and One Call, One Click Center is 80% is provided by the federal government, the FTA. 10% is covered by New York State Department of Transportation, and 10% is the local match. The local match is covered by the entity that is awarded the contract.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the discussion on school buses, there was a woman who has really been focused on this for a few years and done a lot of research on it. She's from Trumansburg, I believe, or at least that's the area. She was working with the school in T-Burg, I think.
Yeah, she's local, okay. Susan. She's wonderful.
Yeah, she was really done a lot of homework on that. And I also look at that as a way to get people to bus stops. You know, because we're all going in these areas, and then they can come to, every school, I think, has a bus stop or close by. That's my thought on that.
Thank you.
Mike?
Nice presentation, Frank. How does highways, bridges, parking fit into this study? Or is that the enemy?
Nobody's the enemy. I'll say that right now. You know, infrastructure is highway, bridges, bike lanes, maybe someday bus lanes. It all fits in. Unfortunately or fortunately, I'm a two-person office, three-person office. Our focus right now is on mobility and not on the highway bridges. I do know Fernando works very hard in his long-range plans and works closely with highways and bridges and projects. So when I get those questions, which I did when I had my public outreach session at the library, I direct them all to Fernando. And I see Fernando's on the line. I didn't know if he wanted to add to that.
I would just explain that the lines, this is a place where the silos may work in our benefit. But the federal highway money, which is used for mostly maintenance of our bridges and highways, is separate from the funding lines that are going to be funding Frank's proposed project. So, you know, we're not taking from one to use for the other. Although I will say, to be transparent, that we could. I mean, there's some flexibility in the highway funding that is allowed to be used for transit, but it's not what's being proposed here. So, you know, we will continue with the highway projects the way we have. In fact, we're going to be updating our 5-year program starting this fall. So you'll be seeing a little bit of activity in that area.
Thanks, Fernando. Greg?
We're on the resolution yet?
No, we aren't. Would you like to
If I could move it, because
move the resolution?
Yeah.
For discussion purposes. Accepting Mobility Vision Plan 2024 to 2027, ID 12661. Moved by Greg, second.
It's 12669.
669.
I have 12661 in here.
The presentation was 669,
Oh,
and
okay.
then right below that.
You're right, my mistake.
Thanks for keeping me on my toes.
No, I appreciate it.
Now I'm confused. Which one are we doing?
10B, accepting the Mobility Vision Plan as a follow-up to 10A. Moved by Greg, is there a second? Or a second by Randy.
Yeah, just a quick question. This always comes up when we have plans and presentations and documents, the difference between accepting and adopting. This seems like something that will happen, or that we're committing to have happen, at least from your work plan and your department. As I look at the rules of the legislature, accepting is sort of defined as we've received your report, thank you very much, nice report, good work. Adopting is committing the legislature and let me just make sure I get this right, acknowledge receipt of the report, thanks the author for it, and formally commits itself to implementing the recommendations of the report is what adopting is. Was there an intentionality behind accepting via adopting, or would you prefer to see this report adopted by the legislature?
Interesting enough, there was discussion about what I needed to put, and I was advised to put accepting.
Okay.
But this is my first time working in municipalities, so I just want this plan to be accepted by you and approval to move forward on it. So however that wording works for you all tell me. I was advised to put accepting, so I don't know the difference.
Does it move you toward a formal work plan and direction that you want to go?
It does.
Mike?
Just that most often these kind of reports are accepted.
Further discussion, Randy?
I'm fine with adopting it.
Yeah, if I may. Yeah, I guess, if this is going to be our priority, which I believe it should be, and I believe that the plan you laid out is what we should be working towards, I guess I'd like to commit us, right, to your earlier point of we've heard from people that they're not heard. And if we commit ourselves to it, you've been heard, right? We're going to try to figure out a solution. It seems like the local financial impact, which always is a consideration, is negligible because of the federal and state and other, programmatic funds that are available in the transportation sphere. So I guess I just look to members of the committee about adopting or accepting.
I won't vote for adopting it. I'll vote for accepting it.
What's the rationale?
The rationale is that we need the flexibility. We appreciate the report. We want them to come back to us if they have things that need to move forward under this report.
Randy?
The reason I'm voting for, I'd like to see it adopted, is because I agree with the plan. And we're committing to the first step, which is the first mile, last mile. The funding is already received, correct?
The funding for the mobility management and one call, one click center, we have in a grant. So we have that money. It's 80% feds, 10% state.
Right.
10% local match will be given to the respondent who wins the award.
Right. And the reason for me that I think that an app software is the only way you're going to really make this an efficient and accessible program. Without that, and there's many examples across the country, people that are doing this, I think that our county is behind on this process. I just think it's the right way to go and the best way to serve as many people as possible, which is why I would like to see it adopted. I see you got some questions.
You see Katie's online with us here today and has a hand up. Our Director of Planning and Sustainability.
I just wanted to weigh in on the adopt and accept issue. It's something we struggle with a lot in our department because we produce a lot of different plans. We typically always ask for adoption for things like the county comprehensive plan or a big statement piece like that. The last time a document was adopted instead of accepted, it was done like this at a committee. A decision was made to change it from accept to adopt for the energy strategy in 2019. So that's always an option for the legislature to move it to adopt if it's something that members feel strongly that they stand behind the actions outlined in the plan and want to see, tell the department clearly, we want you to implement these actions. Otherwise, we go with accept, which is more of great document, thanks for putting it together, work it into your work program as you can, and it's just a little bit less of an emphasis.
Thanks, Katie. We have a motion on the floor. Am I hearing an amendment to that or not? To change it from accept to adopt?
Yeah, I guess I would make that motion to adopt this.
Is there a motion second? Further discussion?
And just,
Susan?
That, in response to Mike, that, under the receipt of reports, that if we do vote to adopt a report, it also says a vote to adopt does not preclude a legislator from voting in the future against the implementation of any particular recommendation. So there is that part, if there was something you didn't like.
Of course, legislator always has that option
Yeah.
for anything.
and just to be.
It might help.
Thanks for that.
Just to be clear, the formal motion would be to replace any word where it says accepting to adopting or changing any word of accept to adopt within the resolution.
I understand that. Everybody else? Further discussion? All in favor of amending the resolution to change the accepting language to adapting? Motion, hands? 1, 2, 3. Any opposed? 2. Motion carries. Okay, so we've got an amended resolution to adopt the Mobility Vision Plan 2024-2027. And we'll go to a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? 1. Mike opposes. Motion
And I want to
carries.
say, we've already been doing some of this stuff. Even before Frank came, we started this first mile kind of things and we'd already approved that kind of thing. I don't understand why we want to do this at all, Greg. Is it just some kind of, power thing? What's going on?
If I may respond? No, because the nice thing about the legislature is one person never has any sort of power.
That's correct, Greg.
It's collective. So thank you for pointing out the obvious, Mike, as usual. But I think what this does is restates to the community the priority around transportation, the barriers that exist to transportation, and sends a strong message that we need to continue to commit, and this needs to be at the top of the plan, the forefront of our mind, of how people move throughout our community. And without a connected community, we don't really have community. So this is an important statement, and accepting, there's a lot of things that get accepted and then shelved, and priorities move in and out, and things get pushed down and taken on and off work plans. When we adopt something, we send a clear message from the legislature that keep working on this, keep going in this direction. And that's the only part of this. And trying to understand the rules and work through the rules of the legislature, accept versus adopt. I don't want to see this to say, hey, Frank, nice report, thank you. I want to see these things implemented. And I feel that many of my other colleagues will also want to see these things implemented. So I'm voting with my conscience that this needs to be a priority within our community. And so that's why I moved to adopt it.
I agree with that.
Okay. We've got several more follow-up resolutions here. Resolution under item 10C, authorizing submittal of Federal Transit Administration Section 5339 Bus and Bus Facilities Program Grant Application 2024-019, ID number 12628. Is there a motion? Moved by Greg, second by Susan. Do you want to discuss these?
I can explain it, but this is for TCAT to update their computers and route planning software. It's 5339 is a capital item.
Is it, are the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are they all similar in what their scope is?
They're similar in the aspect, let me just take they're all federal grants fund TCAT, Gadabout, and the county's transportation area, which includes mobility management, one call, one click. All of them are all federal funding.
Okay. For further questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the next resolution authorizing submittal of Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 Urban Formula Grant Application 2024-020 ID 12629. Is there a motion? Moved by Mike, second by Greg.
Same TCAT facility funding.
Any questions?
Purchase of buses also.
Purchase of buses, okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution under E, authorizing submittal of Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 Urban Formula Grant Program 2024-021 ID 12630. Motion, Susan, second. Randy, discussion, any comments, Frank?
This is the transportation planner budget that includes mobility management, one call, one click, and all the salaries and fringe and everything, the 80% federal share.
Essentially, what we're doing is assigning a series of grants to different program areas within the budgets.
Yeah, the FTA awarded us Tompkins County $4.3 million. Myself, Gadabout, TCAT, and the Transportation Work Group got together, figured out what each needed, and then the next step is we write it into a grant, into an FTA system called TRAMS. Once FTA approves it, it's executed, and we're ready to roll.
Thanks for that explanation. Further discussion?
Are these all reimbursement grants? Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Authorizing submittal of Federal Transit Administration FTA Section 5307 Urban Formula Grant Application 2024-022 and ID number 12631. Moved by Greg, second by Mike.
This is for operating expenses for TCAT to hire and train bus drivers and pay for their operations expenses.
And so total project cost of $6.4 million we're acting on here with local share of $0.
So it's $3.2 million is covered by the FTA. $3.2 million is covered by the state. What I mean by covered by the state is the state awards state transportation operating assistance called STOA, where TCAT is reimbursed $1.15 per mile and 68 cents per fare-paying passenger. So that covers the other 50% of their operating.
Greg?
Yeah, so just to get clarity on this, this is currently within their sort of budget stack that they have in their funding stack, this type of grant or this grant?
Correct.
Right, okay. And then do you know how much or what portion is set aside for training new bus operators or mechanics, or what type of impact that will have on staff growth or, you know, new jobs created over the period of this grant?
I would let TCAT answer that question. I don't know the intricacies
Yeah.
of their budget, but they do get together with all the stakeholders, which is the county, the city, and Cornell, and they go over line by line of what their $20 million budget consists of.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's fair.
With this series of resolutions, we're more or less implementing the TCAT budget and other transportation programs. Is that correct? You're on that board now, Susan?
Yeah. Yes, it's very important. I mean, there was just a week or so ago, there was a budget presentation at TCAT. Several members of the legislature, they went through all of this. I don't know if that's, I'm sure we could share, I could find that and send that to you if you're interested.
And again, the only reason I ask, I have a personal relationship with somebody who just joined TCAT and was raving about the experience of, being onboarded and the opportunity and getting the CDL and becoming a new driver and that whole process. Those are good jobs, and those are jobs that will, have a lifetime of benefit to them. So when I saw that piece in this resolution, it just sort of triggered all of those things, and I think those are important things to continue to push forward and hiring and retaining people within the community. So it's good to see.
Further questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Under G, authorizing submittal of Federal Transit Administration FTA Section 5307 Urban Formula Grant Application 2024-023. ID 12632. Is there a motion? Susan, second. Randy. Anything you want to note on this, Frank?
This is 2024-023. Yep, this is for Gadabout. So Gadabout operates a complimentary paratransit service, which is required by FTA and DOT, and they have a contract with TCAT to run that complimentary paratransit service. But what they also do that is very critical to our area is they provide a demand response, especially for seniors and people with disabilities. So what we carved out all together, working together, was $300,000 to assist with their operating costs for operating expenses, and $374,000 so they can purchase vehicles, 3 vehicles. And we also, just an aside, we found money from the state side to cover the local share so that TCAT, so that Gadabout can start building their fleet because they have an aging fleet and need to replace vehicles also. So we found a total of $674,000 in the current appropriations to shift it over to Gadabout.
Thanks for that explanation, Frank. Further questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And we're down to resolution authorizing 2023-28 Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 Urban Formula Grant Application, and it's ID number 12551. Moved by Greg, second. Susan? Okay.
So the only different piece here is we found gaps where money was not allocated in previous years, 2019, 20, and 21. We got together and TCAT said, hey, we want to put as much money as we can to recruit, retain drivers, and get our system back up to pre-COVID levels. So because of it, we were able to allocate $1.4 million in federal funding to continue the growth of TCAT back to pre-COVID levels.
Thanks for that explanation. You've mentioned to us in previous meetings that there was a need to clean up a number of different items, and it looks like you've kind of got a comprehensive approach here to that.
Thank you.
Further questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you all.
Are you going to be bringing another series, or have we? Are
So
we caught up here?
I think we're caught up there. We're waiting on the 5311 capital agreement with New York State DOT, waiting for them. It's a year delayed, so hopefully we'll get it in the next few months. And then we might have one or two other New York State DOT delayed allocations that I'll be bringing to you, but pretty much you won't see me again, hopefully till November or December.
You don't have to stay away.
I know.
Susan?
I just wanted to say thank you to Frank. I don't know if people are aware that, we have a great team at TCAT now, and also with Frank's help. They're taking care of a lot of things, like trying to take care of the driver shortage. So there's a new general manager, a new finance person, new HR person. They're working really hard to recruit, train, and retain, and things are going great. But there was an interesting situation. The board got an email that on August 13th, there was a transformer that malfunctioned, which caused electrical problems throughout the building, including taking the fuel pump online. That was on August 13th. And Matthew Rosenblum Jones, who's the general manager, along with Jerry and Joe, and I'm not sure their last names, they all took turns taking, because they had to get ready for the morning bus routes. They worked with the fuelers until 1 a.m., taking buses to the Metropolitan up by NYSEG to get them refueled, and then they reached out to the underwriters. So Frank was a huge help. Jeff Smith from the highway, Cornell got them connected with an electrician who came and replaced the transformer, and the Department of Public Works from the city. So they were able to get all the buses by working, but this include, I think they probably worked all night to get these buses ready for the morning bus route. So I just wanted to thank everybody that helped with that, because it was a huge unexpected thing that happened, and people, the staff at TCAT, the leadership really rallied and made sure that things were ready for the morning. So thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Bring us up to date on it. We have minutes from the July 18th meeting. Those been reviewed. Anybody want to make a motion with regard to those? Randy moved to approve, second by Susan. I wasn't here, but I trust that they're complete and comprehensive. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Any further items? I know there's down below a budget adjustment for information purposes, Highway Department. Mike?
I just think we really need to think about what we did in this committee today. And yes, it is a power thing when we change a resolution from what's been proposed by the department to change it to basically a demand through adoption, not even considering what the department's work plan is, for example. We just, I can think of any number of resolutions over the years or reports over the years which I would have liked to have adopted and made the department work on because I thought it was good. Let's think of the Route 13 study, for example. Let's think of the East Ithaca Connector study, for example. Let's think of the old Route 13 discussions from years ago. I just think we need to be very, very careful about this.
Thanks, Mike. Further comment? Greg?
Yeah, Mike, I hear your protest vote and comments as usual, and I'm sure this will continue to be reminded of us. But I want to make sure that, Frank, since you're still here, were these items already on your work plan?
The mobility vision is part of the strategic priorities that have been approved by the county legislators. So right now, I don't think it's currently on my work plan, but will be.
forward.
Moving forward, yeah, because again, it's part of the strategic priorities. I think quality of life, the mobility vision should be on your little cards up front. I don't have it right on me, but
Yeah.
does that answer your question, Greg?
Yeah, it does. I want to make sure that, that changing that is not a demand of the department, but I feel an alignment of our goals and our priorities, which we adopted, intentionally adopted in our strategic operations plan, and we're just aligning a department's vision or work product to that plan to make sure that those items are carried out. So I'm going to think highly of what we did today because I think it's a great benefit to the community. So we can keep thinking about it or we can move forward from it.
It's a mandate.
Yeah, and Mike, as a legislator, you have the opportunity every time you want to see something change from accept to adopt to make that motion as well.
And I've had that for many, many years.
Mike, your point's well taken. I understand where you're coming from. The food system plan would be a good example of that, where we accepted it. And there's no funding really behind that plan, other than it comes from us. But in this particular situation, a lot of funding comes from the federal and state government. It is part of our strategic plan. And I think that the reason I voted to adopt it, because I want to really see this discussed at the full legislative meeting to see the commitment of the full legislature or not. So.
Anything further? We'll stand adjourned.